So if you remember this slide, I told you that the controller handles lines in the NC code in two different ways. First of all, it can produce metacodes or it can produce command calls. And the difference was metacodes need a configuration in the MCF file, and command calls can be handled by CSE directly without the need for a configuration. And I want to show you a couple of examples for the 840D of these command calls that will be processed by CSE automatically. So one thing is, for example, line numbers. So to add line numbers, you don't have to do anything, just add them, and if you simulate it, CSE will produce an error message. So this means we need some kind of a configuration for this one, since in this case line numbers is not just line numbering, it is also used as a label, so you can jump to a specific line number, and because of that it requires a small implementation. That's something that I would like to add now. So I go into the MCF file. In this case it's not really a G code, not an M code, not an address. So I'm putting it into a Siemens program metacode group. Siemens commands. Then I will add a Siemens command, and then you see here a long list of things that we support for the Siemens, and I will just look up label and customize it. And this requires a command with a name. The name is set and repeat subproc, and a param that is the value. It is in this case the name of the label. You can look that up in the documentation. All the CCF files will contain the capabilities to handle jumps and labels, so typically there's no need to configure that again. The CCF will contain that. So I add this implementation, save my MCF, reset, and then CSE can handle that. Another example is that we've seen before. You can use assignments and all kind of calculations. So is equals 100 times cosinus of 0, for example. So you can program something like that. That's Siemens syntax, and CSE understands that and handles it correctly. So the cosinus of 0 is of course 1 times 100 is 100. That's why we move to x100. Another example that we can use is you can use variables. The Siemens controller first of all supports couple of parameters or variables that you can define using the what is the syntax? Def, then the variable type. I think it's int, just int, and then counter. Let's try that if I remember the syntax correctly. So make a reset, execute it. Okay, CSE passes it, so the syntax was obviously correct. So this means I've defined the variable of type integer, and the name of the variable is counter. Why did I define a variable? One of the reasons is I can use while loops. So for example, I can program while counter smaller than 10 and end while. Then I can program, let's activate incremental mode, and then move to x100 and x minus 100 in incremental. So that means the axis will just move back and forth. And then I can increment my counter variable, is counter plus 1, and ideally all variables are automatically initialized with 0 I can also do that specifically to initialize it. And if I do that, I can simulate it. And so now my counter is 0, so I'm moving to 100 and back, increment the counter, and then you see the end while automatically jumps back to while. You go into the same loop again, a couple of times, 10 times to be exact. Probably a smaller number would have been smarter. And then if we've reached 10, we just continue with the program. So that is something doing variable handling, while loops, same applies for if conditions, that really costs you nothing. So what you can do here is counter is 10 or 5. Yeah, the better alternative is to write directly labels. So this is my label with a colon, and then go to my label. Let's see if that works. That should be the correct syntax. So this is now ignored, but CSE recognizes that there needs to be a label. And then the jump really works. So if I went to this conditional jump, I go to the label and can continue from there. So that works. So that's just a couple of methods or ways of Siemens control structures that can be used with CSE. And you can look it up in the documentation. For the Siemens, the most important documents are the programming manual that contains basic description of G0, 1 and all the basic stuff. And the other programming manual is the program manual for job planning, PGA. That is more advanced, and that includes a section about subroutines, for example, and how to handle while loops and so on. Yeah, here it is. So Siemens supports if, endless loops, for loops, while loops, repeat loops. You're welcome to try all that. CSE should handle all of them. So for example, a for loop would have been a smarter way of handling the while loop that I just created. So that would increment the counter automatically. You can try it. CSE will be able to handle that without any additional configuration.